Welcome to the third IDiyas IP Summit, where innovation meets strategy. Today, leaders from law, technology, and business come together to explore how intellectual property drives growth in 2025 and beyond. From AI and fintech to patent policy and corporate strategy, this is where ideas become impact. For the inventor, by the inventor, welcome to the third IDiyas IP Summit.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to welcome you to the Innovation Summit here at K&L Gates in Charlotte. It feels especially fitting to be here. The Gates in K&L Gates is actually Bill Gates Sr., the father of Bill Gates. He's got 212 patents to his name. So he's a centurion inventor, the founder of Microsoft. In a way, we're gathered in a place where innovation is built into its very name. One generation shaped the law firm that protects ideas. The next helped build a company that reshaped the digital age. That's the arc of innovation. Ideas protected, nurtured, and scaled until they changed the world. When we first set out to quantify the number of inventors, and believe it or not, it was never done before till we came into play, there are 5.5 million inventors in the world, 2.8 in the United States, and 2.7 million the rest of the world. And just to let you know, like our Ideas website today, we get traffic from over 150 countries each month. And of course, our volume spikes every Tuesday because everybody knows it's Patent Tuesday. Every inventor wants to know did their count go up as well. So it's kind of like, a fascinating place to discover newer ideas that are popping up as well. And with the 5.5 million inventors, it wasn't about counting, it was measuring imagination. Because every inventor represents a dreamer who believes in their idea strongly enough to fight for it, protect it, and share it with the world. But quantifying was only the beginning. The next goal was to create these serendipitous moments, much like this. When two prolific inventors chat with one another, many, many more innovations are born. And that's kind of what we want to do, especially with a space like this today. It exchanges sparks, generate the next wave of innovations, and the future doesn't come from one idea alone. It comes from unexpected collisions of thoughts. Our very first Innovation Summit was held at InView Security. Though its roots go back to Ohio, InView made Charlotte its home base, growing into a leader in retail security. And earlier this year, the company was acquired by Assa Abloy, a Swedish firm with a presence in over 70 countries. So that story says something important. Ideas may start in unexpected places, but Charlotte has become the launchpad where they scale to the world. And the story continues, by the way. So day before yesterday, I had the pleasure of going to a company called LucidBots. And what's fascinating about this Charlotte startup is that it builds drones to clean skyscraper windows and hard to reach places, by the way, right? And the amazing thing is, I think it installed, it's 500 robotic installations as well. And it's one of the fastest growing companies here in the United States. And it's actually the fastest robotic manufacturing company in the nation. And it's right here in Charlotte, so which is kind of amazing by itself. And so what this tells us, InView shows us how global players can acquire Charlotte ideas. LucidBots shows us the next wave, right? So these are the startups rewiring what's possible in industries as old as glass and steel. But today, it's not only about companies, it's about the inventors behind them. Consider the centurions. The centurions are basically any inventor with 100 or more patents. They are 0.185% of all the inventors. And right now, in Charlotte, we have 5 of them here. Five with more than 100 patents right here in Charlotte. And you're going to be meeting one of them pretty soon during the Inventor panel. And so they're literally like the Navy SEALs of innovation. They don't just have good ideas once, they have built a discipline, a repeatable process for turning thought into impact. Some of them are here with us today, proof that innovation is not a moment, but a lifelong practice. And Charlotte is quietly building an ecosystem that connects finance, energy, technology, and now global innovation. We are positioning this city as more than a banking capital. It's becoming a world innovation playground. And here's the proof, by the way. So with ideas, we are tracking 260,000 plus cities globally, by the way. And in 2023, Charlotte was ranked the 107th most important global city in terms of patent issuance, by the way. And in 2024, that number went to 103. And in 2025, we're going to be cracking the top 100. So remember, every Tuesday patents are granted, but right now, as it looks, we are going to be like number 94 by the end of the year. So, which is interesting. So number one city, in case you're interested, is Tokyo. Number two is San Jose, California. And in North Carolina, with 2025 ranking, Raleigh is at 87, by the way. So we track all this. And then over the next few hours, you'll hear ideas that may challenge your assumptions, spark debate, and inspire collaboration. My request is simple. Don't just listen, engage, challenge, connect. Think global, but act local, because innovation doesn't wait for the future to arrive. It demands that we invent it together. And with that, let's get started. And I want to introduce my very good friend, James Jorasch. He single-handedly probably has more patents than everybody in the room here, 785 patents with 65,000 plus patent citations. And he also heads our IDiyas chapter in New York City. And he's also the CEO of Model Meetings, the CEO of Science House, and many more that I haven't captured. But I will let James introduce himself. And yeah, go ahead, James.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, I'll talk about innovation somewhat. We've got about 40 minutes-ish, Josh, and at which point he'll come by to kill me, and yeah, we're okay? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about innovation, some of the stuff that I've encountered over the years, some insights, some thoughts. It'll be relatively quick. I'm going to talk about optimization a little bit, and I'm going to talk about AI too. So I know that the program had said, I'm going to show you the cutting edge of AI. We're going to do that live in real time, and we're going to have audience participation, and we're going to see, and if all the tech goes well, which I think is going to go well, we're going to see all kinds of crazy things like generating songs, generating videos, looking at X-rays, and anything else we can think of at the time. So if that makes sense, we're going to blitz into this. Some of this might go a little bit quickly, but you know, I'm counting on you guys to keep a smart group here, right? I'm counting on you guys to keep up. So let's see if we can get.
That totally blew apart your buffer.
Oh, good.
Now you got to be really sticking to the chart.
If I speak Spanish, it'll go a little faster, maybe. But okay. So this is Science House. It's Midtown Manhattan. We have an imagination room with whiteboard walls all the way around. I would encourage any of you to stop by and email me. Love to have you in the imagination room and do some inventing. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. We do a lot of data analytics and software AI work and corporate culture as well. But today we're going to talk about innovation, but also artificial intelligence and optimization, because these are all coming together. In many ways, those are sort of the same thing. And as I get deeper into AI, and I've been working on it since I was, a kid, I feel all of these coming together, and they don't seem very different to me at all. So we'll talk about innovation first, and a little bit of the things that I have encountered. No lightning strikes. People talk so much. They say, "Oh, well, inventors had this crazy idea. They're walking down the street, and bang, a lightning strikes, and they got the idea." This is not what happens. If some of you have done this before, you're a rarity. I've never experienced this. To me, creativity and innovation is engineered. There is a way to crank through this and to make the creativity of innovation happen almost on a schedule. It takes a lot of work, but it's not lightning strikes. There's a whole lot of prep that goes behind it. And if you understand the prep that goes behind it and you optimize the environment that you're in, you can get an awful lot of patents. And that's what I did, and that's where I got to the hundreds and hundreds of patents. It was optimizing that experience. Innovation is everywhere. It is not just, some kid's AI business, or it's the iPhone, or these sort of hot tech stuff. These are bricks, right? So bricks have been laid for 6,000 years. Chris, you would think that after 6,000 years, we'd have it kind of worked out, right? Until this guy, Frank, came along, and he said, I'm going to measure everything with bricklaying, and I'm going to measure the people around it and the bricks that are going in. And he ultimately found 30% improvement, including better safety. Not a lot of people are thinking there's a lot of innovation in bricks. It is absolutely everywhere. There's nothing you cannot innovate on. Emotion maps, you don't have to read the detail of the words here if you can't read it, but I created emotion maps for some of the inventions that I did. And what it is about, because being an inventor is about understanding the mind of the user and the mind of the consumer, of the person who wants to use these products or services, I would take these people, like with a vending machine. What are all of the emotions that are experienced at a vending machine? And list them all, and then start to categorize them and group them. And when you do that, the inventions fall out with startling regularity. Now, it doesn't look like this is more of an artistic rendition of it, but mapping this out is a key to optimizing and generating a lot more innovation. Laughter is an interesting one. I've done some work in comedy, and I don't know how many thousands of brainstorming sessions I've led. When I hear laughter in a brainstorming session, I stop, because there is almost always some interesting nugget, something there. And it might sound like a stupid idea, and maybe it is a stupid idea, but there's something there that the brain can pick up. And it never fails. You stop, because when people laugh, it's some kind of novelty signal, I think, to the brain. Boring innovation. Everybody wants the next AI business, okay? But the amount of money in boring things, and Chris, I'm not going to pick on you there, but okay, so you're washing windows. Big business, though, high tech, and stunning what you can do there, and stunning how much innovation is there. It's a classic example. So sometimes you want to actually go away from the interesting businesses towards the boring, because no one else is there. And improvisation and play always. And we're going to get to this later today with the demos. So playing with AI is an astonishingly productive way to generate interesting ideas. So now we'll talk about optimization. This is sort of where innovation plays out into the real world. And I found it in so many interesting places. Optimizing casino locations. Right now in Manhattan, there are eight proposals for giant casinos. In fact, one of them would be the Resorts World would be the largest casino on the planet. Big projects. I went into this knowing absolutely nothing about politics of any kind, and looked at it like an inventor does. What is going on? How is the decision being made? What are these projects? Who's on both sides? I went to the hearings, I spoke at the hearings, and I found an incredible process that can be addressed by innovation, that can be optimized. And I knew nothing. I was a nobody. And within a few weeks, the people who were making the decisions on those things were calling me and saying, what do you think? What about that? All because I approached this with an eye and an idea for innovation. One of my businesses is the same thing. So this is model meetings that you see here, and it is a business about improving meetings. Peter Drucker famously said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I work with all of these large Fortune 500 companies. If you ask them how many people are in the meeting right now, what's the average length of a meeting, they don't have that data. Who's in meetings? How many architects are in meetings right now? They just don't know. And if you don't know, it tends to get out of hand. So what I discovered was there are billions and billions and billions of dollars in meeting wastage. So I did what any person who loves a boring business. I created databases, tables, put everything up in the cloud, threw all the data in, ingested all the meeting data from the companies, and then ultimately said, okay, what does that look like? And let's visualize it. And let's say, like, when you graph and you show all of the companies in your meeting, this is a tiny subset, of course, but how many are good? How many land in the danger zone? What do you do about that then? And how do you take software to help you manage all of this quickly with an understanding of culture as well, and not making people really upset because they've been kicked out of a meeting, but to make software that not only allows you to sort of digitally create a good meeting, but to figure out who's the right person. So is Laszlo the right person? Is Josh the right person? It's helping me understand who's the right person to put into my meeting, to optimize everything. And ultimately, we work with companies in sort of consulting side and analytics side, and the amount of time spent in meetings that is wasted is just shocking. I mean, we found 4,200 hours a year in savings from 3 meetings. At a company that has 450,000 employees, there's a lot more of this. But I want to get into AI now and talk about AI. And the first thing I want to say about this image is that if a human probably wouldn't put the dachshunds on the bottom, I would have them above. The German Shepherd would be at the base, right? And probably the Samoyeds there too. So, and Josh, are we doing okay on time? We're good. Okay, so AI emotions. A lot of people, I do workshops and I teach AI. Do you fall on the left-hand side when you think about AI, or the right side? You thinking excitement, curiosity, wonder? Or are you thinking, this is scary stuff? Anybody in this room want to say? Anybody on the bad side of this? Or are you guys embracing
I
it?
think I'm vastly, but I also probably zigzag different emotions, excitement and fear, right, instead of curiosity.
Yeah, it can be both. And a couple of quotes that, as I've been using AI for a long time, and because there are also patent attorneys in the room, the top quote: "Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make." We're not there quite yet, but we're headed there. And I've been working on inventing with AIs as well. And the second quote: "Artificial intelligence can open doors we don't even know exist." And that has really impacted me a lot, because people use AI, they're asking it questions. How about this? Write the paper for me. The reality is that what AI can do is so far beyond what we are asking of it. And this AI explorer concept as well. This shows a little bit of how all of this comes together. And this is something I've developed over the last couple of months. I have sat down with people and I show them, we get a good model of AI on a shared Zoom call. So you bring in GPT-5 or whatever it is. I show them the capabilities. Here's what it can do: this, 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 this. Once I show them the capabilities, then we start talking about their passion. And one of the first instances of this was with a patent attorney. It was like, oh, well, I do patent law. I don't know much about AI. And then we started hitting with innovation, and we started to just test and just try. Well, can you write claims? Can you respond to an office action? Can an AI do that? He didn't know. So we did it live in a call, his first call with me. So all of these things started coming together, and he started realizing, wow, these claims aren't that bad. This is pretty interesting. And with the AIs, of course, as you know, there are lots of companies. There are many in China as well. It is exploding. And even this is just OpenAI. And all the models they used to have, now they got GPT-5, they got GPT local model. It's insane how many models there are. I will say you don't have to obsess about getting the right model if you want to work with AI. You can pick one, or one company, but just work with it. That's the key. You got to dig in. So what is the difference? I know I put some basic code on the left-hand side. A lot of people think that AIs are like a computer program. You can just open them up and you can look at it and see what their rules are and see the process. So in this, program adds two numbers, A and B. It's going to create the sum C. You can tell if there's something going wrong there. But the reality with AI is that it is neural nets. And this is a series of weights. And that's really all it is. And the data flows in and it goes through these weights and goes through these connections and comes out as an output layer. There's nothing in there to see. There's nothing in there to audit. There's nothing in there to bug fix. That doesn't exist. This is something that is ultimately, we're digging in and getting better at understanding it, but it is a lot like the human brain. If I open up Nathan's brain, I don't see code of any kind. I don't see pictures. I see this tissue and neurons everywhere. But that tells me nothing about how you think and how you work, how you behave. Same is true of large language models. So demos, a couple things that we did just as experimentation and inventing. So these are dogs. I took pictures of these dogs in Manhattan. We would take a dog's photo and the AI would break down the breeds of the dog. Because some people do genetic testing to get that. And dog genetic testing is not great. But we broke down the breeds, and then we started comparing them and letting people vote on them. And then we started asking questions like, does AI understand the difference between a cute dog and a non-cute dog? Or do humans understand that? Not sure. I'm still not sure after digging into this. We also created this was a storybook for kids so that a kid as young as 5 can put together a full children's book with images, with audio, with the ability to translate to Italian, with video, with sound effects that a 5-year-old can put together, because we were just experimenting. That's what this is all about. But if a 5-year-old can put this together, what can we do? And word golf, there's a driving force behind AI, and it is this multidimensional vector space. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but we created a game on top of the vector space because we wanted to have the most difficult word game ever. And this makes like Scrabble. I play tournament Scrabble. It is nothing like this. It is wicked. You do Wordle? Wordle, no. You do Wordle, you think you're good. You're crying with this game. But it's about weirdly teaching people AI through games. I mean, constantly experimenting. All right. So that's the sort of the theory side of this now. So what I want to get into now, and we're not going to do Q&A, but we're not going to do robots. We're going to switch over, if all goes well here, we're going to switch over to a browser, and we are going to start doing some live AI. So hopefully, there we go. Okay. So, and Josh, we have roughly 30 minutes. Okay. So, how many of you routinely use AI at your home or work routinely? And what are you doing with that typically? Write code. Nice. That's what's in your brain. Okay, I should have seen that.
Filling white space.
Filling white space.
Getting a start, something on a project, right? Starting a white sheet of paper, you want to get something done.
Time saving. Research and time saving.
Research and time saving, yeah. So OpenAI has actually released a paper recently that broke down how people use ChatGPT for both personal stuff and for business stuff. And it's changing a little bit, but writing is one of the top things. Writing and research are two of the top things, of course, that come up. So what I want to do is I want to try something, and then we're going to start just working on it. So we're going to be going on a vacation. Where are we going, Michael? Greece. So write me a story about a trip to Greece. But something goes badly wrong, Misha. Unfortunately, something goes badly wrong. What goes wrong?
My plane trip got canceled, so now I kind of like it to you.
Well, then we're not going to get there.
Yeah.
But something in the air, or when we get to Greece, what happened? What problem happened?
Zeus got mad at you.
And Zeus, okay. But Zeus mad at me. So just that. And of course, now this is the O3 model. It's fast, so I like it for demonstrations. So yeah, people often go like, wow, well, what do you mean? It's coming up with offending Olympus and dialogue back and forth and all kinds of, wow, clarify Thunder ownership IP. All right, I did not, wow. Okay, that's crazy. Okay.
That's because you logged in as yourself and it knows your background and IP.
Yeah, I mean, it does know a lot about it. Yeah, I have saved memories, so yeah. That's interesting, though. All right, so now we want to do something a little bit different. So this is where we're going to go off the rails a little bit. How about create an image of the landing in Greece. We're going to see this. It's not the best model for images, but let's take a moment. Maybe while it's doing that, I want to summarize the story as a haiku in French. Let's see how that goes. Okay, it doesn't want me to go. All right, I want to shift over while it's crunching on that. We're going to create a song about our trip. So a song about a trip to Greece with an encounter with Zeus. Nothing more than a prompt.
Did you want it to be a song?
Oh, it should be totally fine. It's most AIs, you could even switch the order of the words and the letters. It's amazing how good they are at okay. Why is it not? Okay. Okay, so now it should be crunching along. All right, so we'll go back to Zeus. It's just not going to come up with the song. Look at that. Oh, all right. Well, there we go.
That's your lightning.
We got our lightning. Yeah, finally. Not an invention. It's easy without an invention. All right, so summarize the story into French, and then I want to try some patent claims too. So while this is coming up, does anybody have an idea, just idea for an invention? Just could be a stupid one, Devon, or well, I don't know, anybody want a thought? It's a skateboard wheel that's electric or like anything.
Proverbial better mousetrap.
Interesting. Well, I guess, but I wanted to address some claims. So it's a mousetrap that is different. I mean, it's nuclear powered, or it's what do you? A nuclear powered mousetrap?
Powered by thorium.
Okay. Well, of course, it's a thorium reactor. Yeah. Can you create draft claims for a thorium nuclear reactor driven mousetrap? That's what we wanted?
It needs to vaporize the mouse.
Ooh. We're trying to be animal friendly today. We're gonna try, but oh, okay. Certainly in Manhattan, getting rid of some of the mice on the streets there would be, if this could work. Yeah, we'll check our song. All right. Danced with the Gods. Be prepared. This may not be sort of the Beatles, but
Just for two, continents of thunder, a flash in the air. Zeus laughter echoing magic everywhere. Every step we took to the ground seemed to shake. Mount Olympus calling destiny as we stand.
so it will continue. It will continue on and on. Do as many songs as you want. I've done songs about dogs. I've done songs about children. I did a Friday dance thing for a 9-year-old girl. I'd never even met her before, friend of a worker's, whatever. And she wanted to do some dance party on Friday night. And I DJ'd from home, just creating songs based on things her mom said that the kid liked. So it's just crazy what you can do with this. And let's get into Ella Marina for a second. Whoa, hold on. It's unhappy there. So if you want to write a little code, so sorry, it was, Nathan, do you want to throw out just a tiny little web app or something that you might want to see? Or I mean, any kind of program, tic-tac-toe or tic-tac-toe game. Create a tic.
Inventor and innovator and entrepreneur, community builder.
We'll try it at the break, maybe. Let's see. So what this is a website that is comparing images. And so why this is called Battle, because there are two AIs. These are not AIs that are known to people. These are like test AIs that have not gotten out to the public yet. And they're just checking. And when you do this and you finish off the code, you evaluate them. So here it says, is left better? Is the right better? Or it's tie? So Nathan, what do you think? I mean, we haven't seen much of it. Oh, let's see. You want to call it? Right? Okay. So we wrote code. Now, you can do versions of this that actually have the apps running, of course, but people who don't know how to code are writing a lot of code now. Is it high quality code? Okay, that's another question, but it is happening, and it is happening fast. In fact, people are talking about code being 99% of all code being written by machines. Nano Banana, how about an image of a dog eating ice cream? This is a popular new app that just came out, and it's popular. Wow, okay. So we have the dog. Wow, it kind of gave it the pause, right? A little bit there. How about, we're going to change the scene. So instead of being like on the grassy field, where do you want the dog to be?
The beach.
The beach. So this is change the location to the beach. I always get return there. And in about 10 seconds, we should be at the beach. There you go. We can make the dog a German Shepherd. So you can bring two people together. I can take a picture of two different people, put them on the beach together, eating ice cream in the wintertime, or absolutely whatever. There is just no limit to this. And this, well, there's a nice. Still with the hands. It's kind of interesting. But this is not perfect, though. There was a time when you get 6 fingers on a hand with images. Now we're getting to manipulate those images and turn them into videos. This will become more or less perfect within 6 months, for sure. And then this can then go the next step. If I can get this. All right, I'm going to try doing this in flow here. Hang on. So we're going to get a movie out of this. So I'm going to start with that image. One sec. Frame to video. All right, let me use a terrier. Have the dog say, ideas is awesome. And, okay, frame to video. Fast times 2, okay. So right now, it'll take a few seconds, but it is creating an 8-second video. So it's starting from the image, that face of the dog, and hopefully get our video. It's working on it. All right. Yeah, well, it's called a lot of different things. VO3 it's a Google product. You can kind of get at it from many different angles. But while this is working, and we only have like a few minutes left, 15 minutes, all right. That we could start. Like, I'm going to go, while that's cooking, I'm going to go back here. And we're going to see what we can do with new chat. So we're going to take these two handsome gentlemen. And then we're going to say have, well, where are they going to be? They'll be together somewhere. Where are they going to be together?
Greece on vacation.
Greece on vacation?
The Parthenon. Okay, good.
At the okay. Have them both at the Parthenon. Well, I won't say in Greece because it knows where the Parthenon is, I believe. If I spelled that right, I don't even know. I don't know. This is also great at, you can take the suit coat, make the suit coat green. You can have Misha wearing a raincoat. You can,
Yeah.
There you go. At the Parthenon. Now, you can't quite see it's not great resolution here, but these are photorealistic. And being able to figure out that they're not actually there or never were there is getting harder and harder. I'm having a hard time in distinguishing. In some of the cases, I'm having a tough time. But then, of course, you can go from there back into the video and have them dancing at the Parthenon. So if we go back to flow, okay, well, let's see what these dogs can do. So it had to make a body for it because it didn't have one. And if I turn on the audio, it's going to disrupt things for a bit. Let's see. The AI also sometimes doesn't like dogs talking because it knows dogs don't talk. But we'll see. But this is looping. So I'm going to unleash. So it's just doing woof woofs. All right. We need to bring in Misha, I think. So if we go back to here, anything else you want to add to this? They could be drinking martini here. They could be, the sun could be going down behind them if it isn't already. Well, see, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but they were dressed inappropriately. Okay. Have them both in togas.
With martinis.
While. Well, you want to get technical? Uzo? O-O?
Yeah, Uzo.
Oh, sorry. O-U-Z-O? U-O-Z-O. Okay. This is what AI is doing to my brain. I'm getting dumber every day. Bozo. Oh. Okay, well, we're going to find out what bozo.
Bozo.
Drinking bozo. But sometimes this is where I talked about, play. Sometimes you just make flat out mistakes. Okay, well, Misha got the toga. For some reason, thought that was appropriate. And he's got a drink. I don't know what the interpretation is on that drink. Okay. If we zoom in on it, yeah. Well, I can open this up a little bit, maybe, if you can see this. That's just a little messed up, but that's okay. We can go with that. So we're just going to take that and we're going to make that into our next here. So, okay, we need to do a little landscape. Oops. Portrait. There we go. That looks nice. All right. Now the hard part, we're going to go frames to video. Hard part is, what are they? Are they dancing? What are they doing?
Break dancing.
Now that, yeah, let's get real about this. He's a big break dancer. Have them break dancing, and yelling out.
Did you sign a paper for this character assassination?
I did not.
Okay.
You can't copyright this stuff, right? I mean, that's a.
So you cannot
No.
copyright, is that correct?
Yeah, currently you can't copyright images like this, and I'm typing ideas here because it's the pronunciation is a thing. But I want to go back also to here and say, I have an image of an X-ray. Oh, we need to check out our claims too. 1 second. Is this it? Yeah, okay. So we just got this X-ray and we're going to say, what is going on? Find out, okay.
James, in your innovative life, how are you using AI personally and professionally?
Well, I mean, when the casino proposals came into New York, I used AI extensively, not just for research, but also I think one of the things I did in New York was they have all these panels of people that are voting. So I got the bios of all those people. So I asked GPT to predict the votes. And it turned out it's pretty good. It was pretty good at doing that. It goes out, reads what was been written by them. It's a longer story about Manhattan politics, but it was shockingly accurate at that. And when I told the people on the panel about that, they were like, "You did what? You were predicting votes." They were very interested. So we had patent claims for the thorium-powered autonomous mousetrap and integrated disposal system. Wow. Okay, I really think yeah. How is it? We have patent attorneys in the room. Like, what is this claim? Is it terrible? I think it's arguably not even based on an invention disclosure. What do you think? You're laughing. It's not bad at all.
So can you ask it about a landscape of competitive ideas?
Sorry, who said that?
If you were to ask for a landscape of competitive ideas, so if you were jumping to Pat Staff and you pull stuff up and see these heat maps of really cool stuff that are near and dear to your heart, sometimes cause you to shift. Have you used that this way or leverage that to that next level of investigation?
Yes. In fact, you can take like we could take these claims and ask it to find companies that you think are potentially infringing those claims. You can take a look at the operating manuals for the thorium-based mousetrap and have it look through those manuals and check against these claims. But this is very new territory, right?
Yeah.
But it is already happening. And even with the drafting of claims, the people I talked to said, they had people under them that would draft claims, but as a starter, maybe this is good. Still, it's a lot to work through here, but it seems like, and the patent attorney that I talked with said, what we did seemed pretty good, and this is getting better every single day. So where are we headed with this? And does intellectual property itself start to get compressed in time? He was talking about, well, stuff that would have taken 25 hours could take like 2. So what happens then? And that's what we've been chatting about. But yeah, that's the right kind of question, which is, okay, if it can do claims, if it can respond to an office action, what else can it do? And we don't know yet of anything that it can't do. Could it draft up a lawsuit, like a copyright lawsuit or a patent lawsuit? Could it come up with arguments? Like it's great. I mean, AI is fantastic about coming up with giving you the arguments on both sides. In the casino proposal, who was on this side, who's on that side? What were the main points for and against? How do you take those points for and against? And if I wanted to go talk to get on television, right? So I said, oh, well, these cameras outside because it's a contentious thing in Manhattan, and you haven't lived until you've been in a 1,600 seat theater with 1,400 people, 700 whom hate the casino proposal, and 700 of them love it in New York City. There's some clash for 6 hours.
Okay, follow-up question?
Yeah.
As you take this and you say, okay, here's the action I want to take or response to an action.
Yeah.
Which then leads to a set of counterclaims, sort of the spy versus spy with a little AI on each of the on each of the guys, right? Have you had much experience with that? How's that working out in terms of sort of the outcomes that follow?
You mean both sides of the?
Yeah.
Like,
so
when you say
if I were to make this an agentic version of, right, and I go involved, and I go
Oh.
put a claim against the company that says you're violating our patents.
Yeah.
Which then they give me an agent response. All of a sudden you start going back and forth.
Oh.
No humans involved, but you have agents.
So
Claim and counterclaim.
a very smart question. That is, and I had the conversation with this guy. I believe that is the future of law broadly. But yes, we talked about when you have each team has AIs, they're going to be crafting, and they're going to be like, if you've got a really good invention, it's going to create some really solid claims. If you've got a very mediocre invention, it can't make magic out of it. So this I think is going to allow the quality patents to succeed more, and it'd be easier for them to succeed and to do licensing deals. The patents that don't have as much quality are going to fall. So this is going to separate. And if you're on the right side with a quality patent, it's great for you. On the other side, they're going to have a really, really hard time. But this is going to accelerate everything that you do. I think everything that you do.
Is there a risk of inadvertent public disclosure leading your idea into AI? For example, it created this nuclear-powered mousetrap. Was it able to do that because somebody already had put something about a nuclear-powered mousetrap in there, and it's inadvertently disclosed that to us?
It's unlikely that anybody had a nuclear powered, so that it's not like it found a blog posting on it. It's that these AIs have such a facility with language way beyond what we can even imagine. I mean, it's hard to explain. I mean, it's a tough question. How did it manage to do that? And it's trained on staggering amounts of text and videos and audio, you know, and images. I don't know. I wish I knew. Like, I can't tell you how it can write great claims to this made-up idea. I mean, I really wish I could.
But remember, whatever you put into it, that's recorded. Say it will probably be used as training data. I think it's a very simple.
Well, there's a couple things that are happening from a privacy perspective. One of the models that I showed you, like OpenAI, they have a local model that you can download, and that means it's just running on your local computer, and that information goes nowhere. So you can do this kind of legal stuff on those models without any risk of it getting out. OpenAI and all of these models also will tell you, you can check off boxes that say, don't use this for training and, you know, don't ingest it. We're in a very tough situation. Like corporate America has encountered this already. What happens when we put our stuff into the model? And what has happened in the last year is they've more or less, they were nervous about it. They thought, oh, we can never do this. And then everybody just started putting it in because it was just so useful. And lawyers may be more cautious, but we will see. But we need our last couple of minutes to be dancing. It's a nice way to finish them. All right, I'll have this. Wow, I'll just keep that running in the background. The question, yes?
One of the traps or fears of inventors is prior art. Invent something never heard of, and then there's prior art.
Hmm?
And people are afraid to disclose. It's between the lawyer and the inventor. Now, when we put something into big database of ChatGPT, it becomes prior art. That's the risk. Where are we with that?
From what I've heard from attorneys, that's not considered prior art because OpenAI is saying they're not going to store it. They can store it for like, there's a certain period of time they store it and then they delete it. But you can say this is kind of private data, but that's getting a little out of me. I don't want to talk. I'm not a lawyer. So people are working on that now, but it's a ruling.
About 4 or 5 months ago.
All right.
How you were able to use AI and whether yours or theirs.
Oops. Sorry. And are they saying this? Wow. All right. Sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. And I like that his toga is kind of falling off a little bit, and it's okay. See, I should have created that as a sort of welcome video for these ideas. All right, but I think we're done here. We're on time. No. Now, I encourage people to try this out. Try every kind of crazy AI thing that comes out. The minute you start trying this, whether it's drafting claims or creating videos or whatever, do something you don't think that they can do, because it's often shocking what they can. And think about using AI in a way that nobody else is. And when you do that and you start applying it to your own work, you constantly come up with new ideas and new inventions. So I've been doing this for quite a while, and it has sparked so many thoughts and so many ideas. You know, you can do, speaking of togas here, you can do philosophy. It knows an amazing amount about philosophy. Greek philosophers, going back millennia. It is unreal. So I think I had a friend who did a double major in philosophy, and he said, oh, I've been reading all these books. He's a super smart guy. And he's like, I wonder what it knows about philosophy. And he, like 5 minutes after he started putting in prompts, he's like, oh my God, this thing knows everything. It is insane. So find your passion and then start digging in and see what it comes back with, because it will then, and then start to change your prompts and start to think about AI differently. What else could it do? What else could it do? What else could it do? And if you can do that, you will find things that apply to your life and to your work. And if any of you guys today want any help with this, or be on a Zoom call and I can show you how this works and how this happens, I'm totally happy to do that. So reach out and we'll connect. But I'm happy that we got to finally see Misha dancing in a toga. You know, it's a once in a lifetime event. All right.
We're going to take a 15-minute networking break for everyone to connect and communicate with each other, and then we'll revisit.
All right. Well, we have a very special innovators panel now, and I'm going to be moderating this. These guys will do 98% of the work. But the first thing that we did as a group was to say that the title, Issues Foremost to Innovators, no, we're scratching that. So sorry, Misha, we're moving it, we're changing it. Our new title is Harnessing Innovation Spirits to Create Breakthrough, and there's going to be an emphasis on breakthrough, an emphasis on not as much on the pure innovation part, but that implementation. And today, our discussion was that we could go through bios, but those are written down. You can read about them. You may already know all about these fine gentlemen, but we're going to replace their bio with a single word. And so I will introduce, and we'll go starting Jeff Grant on the far right here. He is our hurdler. And Chris Estes will be our collaborator, and Devon Ryan will be our director. And so we chose those words, collaborator, hurdler, and director, as words that discuss the way that innovation plays out, right? What happens? So you got that idea, now what? So we're going to kick it off, and we'll try to leave a couple minutes at the end for some questions, but we'll see. I don't know. These guys talk very quickly and have great ideas, which could be problematic. But we're going to start with Chris, who's going to talk about a culture of innovation.
Great, thanks, James. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the invite. So I'm the former state CIO for the state of North Carolina, and I learned coming into that role that we had multiple agencies and what I like to call cylinders of excellence. Other people call them silos, of people working independently of each other. And what that led to was a lot of cost and a lot of expense. And so what we created was an innovation center where we brought in the state employees along with higher education, vendor partners, to start to innovate and bring new ways of working together in government. The story I like to tell, this was a decade ago. We had touchscreen, so we're just coming out in the market, if you're familiar with touchscreens, right? So we wanted to use touchscreens in the DMV offices to help reduce the lines. It's funny, they still have a line problem there. But in using the DMV touchscreens, we had those there, we were using them, people walked up, they were all playing with them and touching them, and someone goes, ooh, these things are getting nasty. I don't want to touch these screens. And we're like, that's a good point. Those are, well, let's put a hand sanitizer pump next to the touch screen. So another innovation of putting business process around that. And then it came, well, who's going to clean the screens each night in the DMV offices? Who's going to fill the hand sanitizer, right? So you start to think about, by testing and piloting things and having people from different backgrounds and work environments come together and collaborate, you really start to solve real business problems. And that was the spirit of what this created. The funniest part was that no one knew what the hand sanitizer would do to the screens. And they were on loan from the vendor community. I won't name the vendor that provided the screens. They might even be in this room. But we decided to just smear hand sanitizer all over the screens every day. We would smear them and they still worked. So hand sanitizer did not affect the screens as best we could tell in our limited pilot. So anyway, that's is really about collaboration and bringing people together. And I think that that's the way we get better outcomes.
All right, Jeff, known to blow things up when he was a kid, the perfect person to talk about the hurdle to get past things. So identifying friction and barriers and what you do about that.
All right, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. Actually had dinner with Devon last night, met him for the first time. And so Misha let me know 2 weeks ago I got my 117th patent. And thank you. And Devon's like, hey, so all those, what's your favorite one? And like, I don't even think about it. And I realized I don't really care about the inventions, but I said I can tell you all the moments behind the inventions that were important to either clients or teammates or just the projects. And it really came down to like how to win in business, in projects, in innovation. It's really about making it happen. And so one of the stories I'm like most proud of, I was telling you about, was Indu at the time. I was head of innovation up until 4 weeks ago when I quit, launched a hedge fund on September 1st. So doing something different now. But before that, I remember we were doing retail security. One of our employees had a contact at a big company that did data centers, and they had a security project, and they said, hey, would you guys be willing to entertain an RFP? And so we had no business being in that place, but they gave us this process. They said, hey, you have like 6 days to produce a proposal based on this brief. We looked at it. I said, I really understand their problem space. It makes a lot of sense, but their solution proposal, I didn't agree with at all. But they had a very constrained process for the RFP. The slot of how you had to present the information was very constrained. So I went to our contact. I said, listen, we'll do this, but what we're going to propose is not what they asked for. It's what they need, not what they asked for. And so what we need you to do is get a pre-agreement that we will produce everything they asked for as they asked for it on a Friday, but they need to give us a personal audience on Monday. I'm going to fly up to the West Coast to meet them. And so that happened. We went there on a Monday, and I'm in this room, and they gave us this junior project manager as a courtesy to the request. And I had built a quarter-scale rack to fit in my travel carry-on case so I can build it up in 2 minutes and show them this concept that was different from what they asked for. I got about 3 minutes into it, was pitching it, and then this guy was on his phone texting. I thought, well, should I wait for him to get done texting? Because it seems kind of rude. I flew all the way out here from Charlotte, and he's not even paying attention. But I didn't realize he was texting the executive director to show up for this pitch. And this guy comes in. I could tell he had kind of a hot demeanor. He came in with very pointed questions. And about 7 questions later, overcame all those objections. His tone went to, this is interesting. I think we can work with this. The meeting room time expired. They had to get kicked out. We went into the hallway. The meeting went on for 30 more minutes. And then he said, listen, we're going to make a decision this Friday. If you can turn around the updated proposal with a couple information we just talked about, we'll consider it. We went out to dinner that night with a friend of my colleague who had to recuse himself from the process because he was in procurement and he had a pre-existing relationship. And he said, oh, how did it go? And Jason, my colleague, said, oh, it went really well. And Matt came in. Wait, Matt came in? And how did that go? I was like, well, he was kind of upset at first, but we landed in a pretty good place. I said, why are you asking? He said, well, I was the fly on the wall on Friday when all the proposals came in. And when your proposal from InView came in, when they got done reading it, that guy said, those guys don't know what the F they're doing. And he threw it to the side. And so the fact that you were able to get him to listen to you was pretty interesting. Fast forward, Thursday, we did the final presentation with the revised information. Friday, we got the call that we won the business. And from there on out, we got into critical infrastructure out of that RFP. So to me, winning is about like identifying those barriers of friction and finding creative ways to overcome them. Because if you didn't do that, the best idea never would have came to light because the structure got in the way.
All right, so Devon is our director. So you've been in a situation where you've got all kinds of different people around you. How do you rein in that chaos, and how do you get them seeing the vision and moving forward creatively and innovatively?
Yeah, definitely been in that situation quite a few times. I guess a little bit of background. I actually started a software company as soon as I graduated college, and we developed mobile apps for Fortune 500 companies, and then our own consumer products. We did a little bit of innovation. Had this wine app, thought was going to be like, I was going to sell for $1 billion. It was a wine tasting app. That didn't go anywhere. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to build, and I learned a lot about entrepreneurship. But yeah, for filmmaking, that's my passion, and I think the through line for me, whether it's software, whether it's film, is just not waiting for permission. And I mean, there's just so many barriers, right? There's institutional barriers, corporate barriers, funding barriers. And, when it comes to film, I started off as an actor, and I just couldn't wait around for an audition, right? I wanted to tell stories. And that's whenever I decided to create my own projects, become a director. I started directing car commercials, and I was able to, whet my appetite creatively and also hone in some skills that have been, essential. So for example, breaking down barriers, what I learned as a director is that you might, it's not really all about what you put on the screen. It's actually how you align the people behind the scenes. So you're working with a cross-functional group of people. You have investors, you have actors, you have crew. And it's really about, as a director, how do you make them see the film in your head? Well, you can't, right? So you have to be able to find ways to make your vision very clear to them. And as a filmmaker, you're essentially telling the story about the story, right? And I think if you explain the vision as clear as possible, you're able to essentially get people on board to help you solve problems on set and also contribute their best ideas. So for example, a producer might have budget constraints. That's what they care about. The actor wants to explore. They just want to explore on set. And then your cinematographer just wants to make everything beautiful, right? And as long as I'm just communicating the vision to them, I think these different personas creates friction, or tension as a barrier, but that's where you get creative, like Jeff was mentioning. And so a producer might say, hey, well, we have this budget constraint. You don't get all the lighting equipment you need, cinematographer. Well, he might create a new lighting technique that didn't exist to light the scene that actually makes the scene stronger. And it's stuff like that that you want to tap into and reinvent, stay strong on the vision, but reinvent the path to get there along the way.
Josh, we doing okay on time? What do we got?
Yeah, we started 5 minutes late, so we're gonna call an audible and go a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go till, sorry,
Yeah, we should be fine on the 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
10 minutes.
So for Chris, I want to follow up on the barriers. I know you've worked with government, you've worked with education. Those are not two institutions that people think of for fast moving, right? How do you get innovation through, and how do you get innovation flowing through with that environment?
Well, I think you're right. They're not known for fast, but there's a lot of big corporations I've had the pleasure of working for that aren't very fast either. I think the secret, though, is back to the collaboration, getting people together. So the magic happens when people with different backgrounds and skill sets are given the opportunity to do something they weren't. So the cool part when we created the iCenter Innovation Center in North Carolina with the governor, it was to give the employees the opportunity to do the things that they weren't given permission to do before, right? And so that created the innovation. They're like, "What you mean we can put hand sanitizer on the screen?" Well, yeah, just do it. Just smear it all, and it ended up being fun. I was telling someone earlier when I was in the role, I was asked to, through the North Carolina General Assembly, decided for some reason the state CIO needed to be over drone technology. So I was over the drone technology, and to fly a drone in the state of North Carolina in 2012 and 13, you actually had to have my permission. Just saying. Why they picked me, I don't know. But the interesting thing about the drone technology is we had in the Innovation Center, some companies donated drones. In the building that this drone that we had, the Innovation Center had like a center stack that was like 5 stories high. So I go in one night at about 9 o'clock to check on a big grand opening thing that we were having, and there's the drone flying inside the building. So I'm like, "Do you guys have my permission to fly that drone?" They're like, "No." They were all upset that I was going to fire them. But the irony of it was the law was written that the drone it was only for outside use. So technically, by law, I didn't have authority over the drone flying inside the building, so they were safe. And that was what they told me, is they pulled out the law, as I was pretty pissed off about the situation. But
All right,
anyway,
Jeff, how do you create the magic for no money?
Oh, so that comes from my early days as an inventor. I was a toy inventor for 10 years. So I was in my 20s, and the business model was very interesting because it was speculative. So we would invent concepts, build prototypes, videos, any kind of expressions to help pitch to like Mattel, Hasbro, Fisher-Price. And we didn't get paid unless they accepted it, it went to market, and then we got a royalty. We might get like a small advance in front, but essentially everything we did was speculative on our side. So we had to be very judicious around how we spent money because most of the things didn't pay off. So it was very kind of like a venture fund in a way. But the other half of that, I call it a lot of magic for no money, is even if we had a great idea, people thought it'd be easy to be a toy inventor. Like, "Oh, that's such a fun job. You just invent things and it just happens," right? No, the ideas are super easy. Affording the ideas is super difficult. So everything's in a slot, right? It's a very tight margin business. So they'll have a $25 slot, a $17 slot, $12 slot, $8 slot. Then they have a bill of materials. And then they say, "Well, this is how much you get for your feature." So if you want to invent a feature and get a royalty on it, you got to find a way to produce all that magic for like basically no money. So actually, one of my proudest invention kind of transformations from toy invention to InView was I had this idea for this Thomas the Train interactive learning set for like a guided play for kids. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if you could have like Thomas the Train or Percy, the train car itself, be aware of all the cars connected to it? Couldn't it be great if it knew where it was at Soder Station or wherever, and then it could guide the child, say, "Hey, I see you're here. Let's pick up the corn. Let's take it here, and then let's see what happens." So that's an easy idea, and you could throw microchips at it, and that's solvable. But that's adding literally dollars to BOM costs, and we had cents of BOM costs. So I remembered from my E40, I can't remember what it was. It was like a preliminary electrical engineering course around this idea of a voltage divider circuit, which is super simple. And so for basically 25 cents, I came up with a system that had one little 555 timer in the engine. Each car had its own little unique resistor, and it had this massive lookup table that could determine, based on the combinations of all those resistors, like what was there, and then it would respond accordingly. So we were able to license a product, produce the magic of probably dollars worth of BOM cost for literally like 25 cents. And so a lot of what we did was just sort of finding how do you make it work, because we didn't get credit for just the idea. We got credit for proving that it was feasible too.
All right, well, everyone in this room works really, really hard. Why don't I cue up Devon to talk about his newest film project now. I know this is going to solve some of that. Well, not solve, make this worse, I guess. So you want to talk about the project?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess, not long ago, working meant going to one job, one 9 to 5, you're going into the office, it's a cubicle, right? Well, since the rise of the pandemic, now people work remotely. And there's actually a group of people out there. This is a phenomenon called being overemployed. So they're secretly working multiple full-time jobs. And I have a background in tech. I have a lot of friends who are doing it. It's a way to make money really, really quickly. There's an ethical gray area. They're not telling their bosses, hey, I got a whole nother job, whole nother 9 to 5 that you don't know about. If you Google overemployed, go to the news tab, you'll see a bunch of articles from Wall Street Journal, Business Insider. This is a thing that's happening and it's getting written about. So full disclosure, all right, I was in tech. I worked multiple jobs at one point to fund, remember I don't wait for permission, to fund some of my own short films. And I took that disposable income and I made some short films. And next thing I know, I won a few awards and I was like, wow, showed these to some people, ended up getting paid to direct. So I was like, great, I'm gonna start a film production company. Fast forward to where I am today, that's why I'm making a movie about it. I have a personal connection to it. But we're basically following a man who's secretly trying to save his family home. I'm sorry, he's trying to save his family home by secretly working multiple remote jobs, but it's a chaotic lifestyle. So he ends up making a mistake. And he has to go into the office, which nobody wants to do. He goes back into the office to try to fix this mistake. And while he goes there, he discovers a corporate scheme that threatens to blow up his entire double life and his whole system. So that's the premise. Yeah.
Well, we all know that Misha does double work as heading up ideas, but also breakdancing on the side too. So
Oh, there you go.
it's not lucrative yet, but it's getting there though. Yeah, it's getting there. So maybe we have time for a question from the audience about a barrier or an invention or an idea of how to get past something, how to get things moving. I know someone. Hang on. We
the person working in state government. Can you do a dump of the DMV administrative database and their operations, and then ask Perplexity or Grok to come up with a system that works better?
I wish it were that easy. I think the problem with the DMV offices is right now is just the growth in North Carolina. You have 115 offices that's been static for the last decade, and you have a 20% growth of people in North Carolina, and the two just don't mix. So they're understaffed. North Carolina General Assembly did fund additional staff for their offices in the last session. So I think you should start to see some improvement for that. But I'm not here to represent the state, but I do follow that and hear about it.
I think we have a question over here. No? Yes.
How do you penetrate some of the data sources that your AI search doesn't go into? I was looking at some election data and I was trying to get back to some comparisons between one election and another, and it just didn't have access to that content, and I had to go into the source myself and pull out specific content to add it into the AI so they could make the comparison. Is there any way are there any AIs that have more access to good sources than others? Do we have to change the law so that government-owned databases become available to AI? Are you thinking about that?
I mean, any one of you, Devon or Jeff?
I don't have anything on that one.
You're really talking about something I've talked about a lot is technology moves faster than government can pass laws. And so you're dealing with this space right now around data management, privacy, that the law hasn't catched up with where the technology is. So I think you'll see, the Governor Stein does have a policy committee on AI, and this is probably one of the topics they're working on.
And Devon, you want to?
Yeah, I do want to tie this to AI. There's a big question mark on the future of work. There's a lot of tension around, what's going to happen to a lot of these white collar jobs. We have the rise of the gig economy. And then of course, inflation, people not being able to afford a home. That's what this movie is trying to answer. With the rise of AI, people, working, like, how's that going to change our work life? And I just wanted to tie the whole AI concept, the future of work, to your presentation on AI as well. So that's why I think this is a very important opportunity to tell the story cinematically about the future of work.
We're
right in time.
We're right in time. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Oh. If you guys have questions, you could also come up, at the break, but
Hot
Sorry,
topic. Hot
my
topic.
time is up.
Question is it understaffed because the central systems, software systems aren't doing a very good job? Or something else?
All right, I'll answer the question so everybody can hear it. The DMV environment runs on a mainframe Cobalt software that's not been updated in 30 years. And so there is a RFP out at the state level to select a new technology platform. And so that'll take a couple years to get implemented. But so yes, old technology.
And if
But
you want
very good technology, by the way. We have IBM in the room, the mainframe guy, so I'm sure he could help improve it.
And if you want to bid for that RFP, you just pull a ticket, right? And then you can get in line.
All right, thanks.
So I want to thank Misha and the IDS group here so much for inviting me back again to moderate a panel, and to my esteemed panelists here. My name is Laura Peter. I am the Executive Director of Technology Transfer at UNC Charlotte, and I served as the Deputy Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, as well as in Silicon Valley for many, many years. And I just want to note the last panelist, who was the state representative formerly of the DMV, had the Cobalt computer mainframe at the USPTO. When I was there, that was one of our biggest adventures, was updating the old Cobalt system that the whole USPTO ran on since 1980, and nobody could swap it out because the code was so old they didn't know how to do it. So it's a little bit rampant in government with all of these bespoke systems that are out there. So I'd like to welcome my esteemed panel here, mostly from the financial area, from the banking industry. We have at the far end, we have Dave Iswaran, who's a partner and patent attorney at K&L Gates, and he manages a team supporting IP objectives of diverse clients. And he's held positions at the patent office as an examiner, and also as an in-house attorney. So he brings a broad range of experience. Thank you. Rob Glantz is the managing director and head of IP for Wells Fargo, and he leads a team of talented attorneys, strategists, and other IP professionals who manage and enforce Wells Fargo's patent and trademark portfolios. And of course, he has 20 years or more of experience, and he's a fellow Cornellian, so we can bond over that. And Russell Blaze, welcome. Senior Vice President and Associate General Counsel for Intellectual Property at Truist Financial, where he leads the team of legal, leads the patent group team within the legal and technology team, 20 years of private practice, and in-house experience driving patent prosecution, litigation, and technology transactions. So thank you for being here, and welcome to everyone. I'm going to jump right into questions here. So I've worked in industry for a long time. I've defended patent portfolios. I've been at the USPTO, and I know how quickly the IP landscape changes over time, and it is just accelerating by leaps and bounds due to technology and policy changes. So from each of your vantage points, what do you see as the most pressing challenges of our day today? So Russell, I'll start with you.
What's our most pressing challenge? Certainty, I think, is the most pressing challenge I have. What does that mean? Well, let me start over. Certainty is my most pressing challenge on a day-to-day basis. You know, we have a lot of inventors in the audience, and presumably you've all engaged with patent attorneys, and you get a lot of non-answers from patent attorneys sometimes. I don't know exactly what scope of protection we're going to get, if any. But then, after talking to inventors all day, every day, I have to answer to leadership. You know, we're spending a lot of money on these patents. What value do they even have if they issue? And then there's this like middle ground of, I've talked to you, you've shared your ideas, we've decided to move forward. Then we're faced with this prosecution experience, right? That how long is it going to take? I don't know. And at some point, we might have to cut bait, right? Like, this isn't happening. So you have to message that to the inventors, have to message that to leadership. And at some point, you know, you got to answer the questions. Why did we even do this? I don't know. You know, I don't say I don't know, but you know.
Well, and also the policy underneath it is changing as well. And so when you may file a patent application in good faith, and then the policy changes under your feet, and you're like,
yeah,
How do I explain that to an inventor? Why their patent isn't going through, or why I've spent 20 grand on prosecution?
Yeah, there's just so much uncertainty.
So much uncertainty. All right. Well, we're going to keep on trying to calm the waters. Rob, what do you think is the biggest IP challenges of our day right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can label it better than that. I would describe it. I've not, whether it's uncertainty, it's, I think in the past, we've always focused on uncertainty at single dimensions, the law is in flux. That's interesting. Your business may be in flux. Now we're hitting it across everything. I mean, we heard about the changing work environment. I mean, these are employees concerned about, Inventor, everybody in the room fundamentally is probably a white collar employee, right? And so that's who we work with. Those are the inventors. Well, they're concerned about their jobs in 2, 3, 5, 10 years. We used to have them focused on, hey, why don't you be concerned about innovating in your patents? Well, they got these other concerns, and then you can go all the way up, you're a little bit of a snapshot of the patent attorneys, some version of, hey, it's going to write itself, the patent. Well, then the patent attorneys got some uncertainty as to where they fit in the ecosystem. And then we've got a new administration that's taking on AI and making significant changes to both policy and technology at the patent office that ultimately drives how we interface with that. And then you got the legal system, which is inherently uncertain, right? So I'm not sure there may or may not be big changes in the legal system, but I think we're used to managing legal uncertainty, but had to have uncertainty across the entire life cycle, starting with the day-to-day jobs of the inventor. That's unusual for us.
Dave?
It's the same answer, but I'll give a different flavor of it, which is cost. So, I mean, with uncertainty comes cost. And one example of that is the cost to file a patent application. All of you have a lot of ideas, James more than most, but then you have to decide judiciously, what are you going to spend your money on? Because it costs tens of thousands of dollars to get a patent. And even if you get a patent on exactly what you want, there's this uncertainty. So maybe one's not enough. Maybe you need 5, maybe you need 10. You need enough that you will be able to get that license from someone who would otherwise kill the one patent. So I think if you can reduce the cost to do things, then there's a lot more interesting things you can do. And actually, I wanted to ask this question of all three of you later on when we get to some other things, but cost to me seems to be the biggest driver of.
Well, and it's so interesting because right in this environment, we've seen the community recognizing that patents can be valuable and they're going after patents to make money, and not in the normal way you would think as, a patent assertion company, but rather as regulators who want to tax patents or tax portfolios or take half of the winnings away from a small inventor who is funded by a litigation funding organization. So, I mean, the blessing is that they suddenly recognize what we do is valuable. On the other hand, it's a little bit disconcerting to think that it will be taken away. But you all are largely in the financial industry, so I'm going to shift back to that a little bit. Rob, can you tell me from Wells Fargo's perspective how your approach to IP has evolved in recent years and where the focus of technology really is for you or for your company?
Yeah, so banks have, I mean, you can just look out the window and look at what Charlotte is today and then look at what Charlotte was 20 years ago, right? 20, 30 years ago. So banks have gotten a lot more consolidated. Banks used to be purchasers of technology that would fundamentally, you were banks that use technology from elsewhere. Now you can't be a big bank without knowing that your business depends on technology, right? So simple stuff, cybersecurity, authentication, encryption, all those things that are important to everybody, but right now it's, you got your money, you got all your personal information, and who do you have to trust more than anybody? It's your bank. And so that becomes a technology issue. I don't know how the exact numbers, but we roll out, a mobile device product and we've got 30 million customers hitting it. There's not a lot of startups that have 30 million customers, so it's got to be safe. Apple's got some much bigger issues, but there's not a lot of companies that need it to work very elegantly, very safely along the way. So that becomes a technology development issue. So from an IP perspective, there's a lot of interesting things going on to get things that work well at scale. And you're not necessarily chasing shiny things, but you're chasing things that as we saw at the beginning, it may not, we may not be getting any lightning bolts in the banking industry, but there's a lot of optimization, a lot of improvements. And then, AI puts a little wrinkle on that because all of a sudden you're doing things faster, quicker, and is it going to break in 10 years? When you ask the COBOL system to get rewritten by AI, that sounds like an elegant solution. You don't need to find the COBOL programmers to help you with that. And then what does that look like, and can you take the risk of that? So those are some of our issues.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so interesting. We were talking earlier that, again, I'm newer to the banking industry and it's not where I play in the past, but you were explaining that a lot of your innovations are customer facing, the interfaces, the cybersecurity, the personal information, not so much the technology in between the banks. Do you want to talk about that just for a minute?
You transfer money, right? You need your bank has to talk to my bank, and that's the way the money works. You don't need to get bounced somewhere along the way. So there's a lot of standards and interoperability, and then where do you differentiate, right? You differentiate with the customers and their experience, and when you click on the app, does it work, or do you have to wait, and does it spin, and do you have the confidence that you find what you want in 1 click versus 5 clicks along the way? What's your experience when you show up at the bank branch? And we're moving the bank branches to be a lot more, frankly, they're no different than your mobile device. You may find a teller there that's looking at an iPad running the same app that you could at home, but that becomes, that's actually the smoothest way to interface with banking. So it's, we got Charlotte, we've got 1, 2, 3, 3 big banks here, at least in the Charlotte area. And working together, we come up with really some elegant ways to move money around. We're going to, you've heard of Zelle. Well, that's a banking initiative that is, very, very concerned about moving money. I don't know how many billions of Magdalene, the numbers on moving every day through the system, but really elegant that you can just simply with somebody's email address, move it from my bank to your bank, right? So that cuts through a lot of stuff, but you need that to work really well. And you want as many banks to be involved in that, right? So I think it's practically an open system. So there's, 5,000, 6,000 more banks involved that can have this. Oh, well, that works beautifully. It doesn't help if you can't transfer money to somebody else because their bank doesn't use the same technology that you use.
So the patents around that area are not as robust or as many, perhaps, as the ones on the customer-facing side. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it depends what you're concerned about, right? So the authentication is really important. So I think we all, have standards around that. So I think it's probably not proprietary on how you use that system on the customer facing, but how do you, the Zelle, for example, that's all within your banking app. I don't think there's a separate app for that. So the question is how elegant is your experience to get within the app to actually access that functionality?
Fair enough. Russell, you are at a newer bank. It's 2-3 years old. It was a merger of a couple of other banks, and you've had to build or put together the IP portfolio in a newer way. Can you talk about your innovation program, what the priorities are, how you've gone about that, what the innovation culture is around Truist as far as patenting?
Yeah. So Truist is about 3.5 years old at this point. It was the merger of BB&T and SunTrust, two very trusted regional banks. And I think as Rob said, there gets to be a point with a bank where you're no longer just the purchaser of technology. You have to build your technology. I think the leadership at Truist or in the original banks at BB&T and SunTrust recognized this right from the outset. Just a lot of foresight there, and built a technology center where they knew this technology was going to be built. They brought on experienced people. Michael Springs came in from Bank of America, who many of you have worked with at Bank of America. And then I was brought in afterward, and we both started, or he started a little before me, and then I started just as Truist was launched. So like the day you all saw the signs go up, I started that Monday. And we hit the ground running. The foundation had already been laid by executive leadership that we're no longer two small regional banks. We're a leader. We have to provide this better, safer banking experience. It has to be elegant. It's going to be self-built. And from that moment, the patent program has been everywhere in the bank. People have embraced it. There's a ton of excitement. It's growing like crazy. We're brought in all the time to educate inventors. They're all excited about it. They're engaged with it. And it's exceeded even I'm an optimistic person who might be overconfident at times, and I think it's exceeded even what I expected it could be. Michael and I always joke that that first year, there wasn't just low-hanging fruit. I mean, there was like, we couldn't take a step. The fruit was on the ground. It was everywhere. It was in piles. And it's been a wonderful experience just seeing all the innovation and how much our teammates have really embraced sharing that innovation. And to the culture, I think I mean, you're all inventors, you can tell me, but there's something nice about having your innovation, your intelligence, your hard work recognized in a very objective, public way, right? People love sharing their patentable ideas, discussing the details, having a patent application filed, getting an issued patent. People love it, and it's just it's a snowball effect. Like the momentum is crazy, overwhelming sometimes. I'll even say, and that's where we are. I mean, at this point, we have, I mean, more than 1,000 probably filed patent applications at this point, over 300 issued patents in barely 3 years.
That's phenomenal.
Just looking it up.
Yeah.
No, I think it's so important. And in the university context, in the private industry, I found this to be true, that innovators deserve to be recognized. And a patent is one way that our American culture says, yes, you have contributed something very important. So that it's kind of nice for us.
Yeah, in a very self-serving way, when I present to a lot of teams, whether it be inventors or leadership, and I recognize this is a self-serving description, but I say patents are the market's most objective metric of innovation. So let's jump in. Let's fully embrace this.
Your watch is ringing.
Yeah, I know, I don't know how to turn the sound off this. My phone is silenced, but then it all goes to this. I'm like,
as you mentioned, there's really nothing else that, I mean, it's legally required, the inventor's name, the person that thinks of that. Usually that can be, you know, bought out contractually or not, and it can't be. That inventor did that, and it's recognized, and that's.
No, and I tell faculty this too. I say, look, you've done all these papers. That's really wonderful, and they're in all these esoteric magazines. But you get your name on a patent, and that goes everywhere in the world, and they will never take that away. That will always be prior art. So anyway, I use the same methodology, psychology with inventors. David, do you wish to contribute an answer?
Actually, I kind of want to ask this question I was referring to earlier, which is about cost. I mean, when we think about recognition of inventors, there's a lot of innovation happening, but you have to pick your spots because it does cost a lot of money to patent something, to file the application. I'm curious if AI can help us reduce this cost. If it's not tens of thousands of dollars, if it's single-digit thousands of dollars, do you reduce the cost profile of the IP program, or do you recognize more of the innovation across the company? I'm just kind of curious how you all think about that.
I am trying to leverage IP at every point I can. I don't have I haven't thought about this because I'm just hearing the question for the first time, but with all of our outside counsel firms, I have standing calls with them, you know, weekly. And I'm constantly pushing them, like, where are you using AI? Where do you see potential uses of AI? And it's everywhere, right? And we're looking at ways to help us, even in ways that I hadn't dreamed about at first, right? That I didn't recognize would be a net gain. Like, we've all thought about for 2 years now, oh, we saw ChatGPT and we're like, can this draft a patent application? And I don't want to get into that discussion here, whether or not it can, but you know what it can do? At this point, I have hundreds of ideas in the queue that people have submitted, and it is very hard to weed through those manually. And I have a firm that can use their AI tool to categorize them based on our internal categorizations and provide kind of a priority to how they should be reviewed and distributed outside counsel. That is a huge burden off my desk. And that's just a use of AI that it certainly didn't cross my mind when, you know, ChatGPT came out.
I'll just comment that at the USPTO, one of the things we instituted was artificial intelligence to send a patent to the correct art unit. instead of having basically a cottage industry that was in Pennsylvania of like, 1,000 people reading every patent, sending it, AI started doing that. So it was a blessing in that it was faster, but it also, we cut the contract for those 1,000 people and reduced costs there.
I was always wondering what happened.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I left, artificial intelligence was ubiquitous across most innovations. About 2/3 of all of the innovations coming into the patent office had some AI element in them. So let me ask you, Rob, are you focused on certain types of patents? Are they AI? Are they cybersecurity? Do you kind of divvy it up equally? Does it go in waves per, the seasons or?
We support the entire company. So in our bank, there's a lot of technology. So that's a big part. And then you got the businesses. So when you go into the branch, that's the bank branch. So I think it's fairly steady that the technologies are always improving, and obviously patents are technology related. So you hear about business method patents. So I think we track a little bit about the popular press about, hey, business methods aren't patentable. Well, if you're an employee that thinks they're working in the business method space, then you're going to go up and down depending on what you read. From the tech employees, that's just always constant because they expect that's kind of noise. They don't see it as business methods, even though it's a banking patent. In doing that, back to your question, Dave, around the cost. What I struggle with is being in the patent world, communicating to people outside of the patent world. So as soon as you suggest that we've got tools that can be AI tools, the natural, your example is a good one because you now have people that don't need to do that task, right? In the patent world, we still need people to do the task of creating the patent application. The real question is if it's not as good, if all the time it isn't as good as the humans doing that, now the question is can you, are you saving money or you're not? And that's where I struggled. How to explain that I can't, a lot of the things that we do aren't, it's not good enough to be wrong 50% of the time. You need to be mostly right 98% of the time, or 98% right 98% of the time, because if it was wrong 50% of the time and a human was doing it, you'd fire that human and you'd fire the one that gets 98 and 98. And that's kind of where we are with the tools right now. So it doesn't really, you can't basically say, hey, this is a head counter, or this is a cost savings here, because it's not, good enough's not the right word, because sometimes it's outstanding. You're like, this is wonderful to save so much time. And then there's other times when this was so wrong, glad I looked at it, glad I didn't use it. And I don't know if the tools are going to eventually evolve there, but I've been scared enough and pleased enough to know that I can't really give a quick answer to, am I going to save money on this? I'm glad I have it. I'm glad we're trying to figure out to use it. So it's I like the exploring phase of kind of where we are on doing things.
And that's absolutely fair enough to say. I think that there were some cases that came down in the patent office where AI was used to draft a patent application, and those lawyers were sloppy, to put it nicely, and did not review what they submitted adequately. And at least one or two of them have been sanctioned, and I think one person has been barred. So it is serious. I personally don't see patent attorneys going away, because although AI can, take a shortcut, the need for the inventor input and for the attorney to actually read and make sure it's making sense and disclosing the right things is always going to be on a person.
For the record, don't take it from me, take it from them.
Let me try. You mentioned business method patents, Rob. This has been an ongoing discussion on whether business methods should be patentable or not. And there's been case law that has said, no, we don't think so. But it's a new day in Washington, D.C., and we have a Secretary of Commerce who ran a financial services company, and a new director of the USPTO who was inclined to be supportive of financial patent applications. We've got legislation in Congress. I'll say the names real quickly for the patent folks out here: Para, Prevail, and Restore, that are pending. It is probably not likely that these are going to make it through Congress, but they address things. Para in particular addresses whether business method patents should be patentable. So Dave, I'm going to turn this question to you to talk about the legislative landscape and where we see it going, and what are the opportunities, especially in the financial services industry.
So I will say there are these three legislative efforts people have talked about. One of them about expanding the eligibility of patents into a broader segment, probably mostly software and business methods areas. Para, that was co-sponsored initially by Tom Tillis. who I think by becoming a lame duck and saying he wasn't going to run for his next term, basically tanked that legislation, in my view. So I don't think that's going to pass. I don't think the other ones seem to have much energy these days. I actually thought at the beginning of this administration that we were going to see something pass, just because there seemed to be a lot of alignment in that direction. But I no longer think so. I think if there's change, at least in the near term, maybe 2025, it's going to come from the patent office. And we have a new director who's just appointed last week, John Squires, also from the financial services industry, by the way.
Yes.
Former Goldman Sachs chief IP counsel. It's to be determined what they're going to do. But I would say if we see any change, it'll be from the office. And if I had to bet, it would be this year or never, at least in this regime.
Yeah, we live in interesting times, that's to be sure. I know one thing John Squires has advocated is the more use of AI tools to do prior art searches and the like. And then that goes back to our previous discussion, but he's definitely an advocate of that. So we'll see where that goes for sure. We talked about this a little bit more. Russell, let me just get to you on your thoughts on AI. Has it changed the way you're doing patenting, or are you seeing it AI creep up in most of the innovations as just a byproduct?
Yeah, I don't think AI has at this point changed the way we do anything. I just like to stay abreast of how our firms are exploring its use, right? And I don't question them too much because they have their own, like I spent a long time at law firms. I know how rigorous their processes are. So I don't dig into too much their methodology to what or how things are being explored, but I'm very curious to what they are exploring. And I talk about it with all the firms weekly, and they're all kind of arriving at different tools. And I like to stay abreast in that. I don't think any of them have been game changing at all. Certainly none of them have, well, I should say, definitely none of them are game changing. And I'm not sure any of them have really moved the needle a ton yet, but the potential's there. The potential's there, and I'm, all for the exploration. As far as AI in the bank, I feel like every idea that gets submitted has an AI angle where it's kind of like a bolt-on. And again, I'm all for it. I'm all ears. Let's hear what's your AI bolt-on, and there's a use case in probably almost every patent application we filed. Oh, and by the way,
It is exciting. And our previous moderator talked about the quote from the fellow that said, machine learning is the last invention we're ever going to make. And it kind of reminds me of I'm hearing bells. It reminds me of the statement by the judge in the 1880s who said everything had already been invented in the world. And I thought, well, okay, I think we've got some runway here. Well, listen, we're going to
one more question.
We're going to do one more question. Perfect timing. Let me turn it to you, Dave, and ask, we've talked about challenges and opportunities and policy shifts. And if you could make one change to the IP system in the United States today, whether in law or policy or practice, to better align it with innovation, business, or technology, what would your answer be?
I'd make it very clear what you can and cannot patent.
So you would be for expanding patent eligibility or just making it clearer?
Personally, I prefer expanding it, but really the solution needs to be clearer, whatever that is. I think that's what I think.
And I think you're not alone in that community. We've heard about certainty from you at the very start of this discussion, that the technology is changing so fast and then the policy flip-flops around as we go along. And so when you're trying to plan for a 3-year patent examination runway, it gets a little bit difficult. So I love that. What say you, Mr. Glantz?
The next step of that, which is the certainty around the cost. So that's, litigation being in courts is highly uncertain, highly expensive. This only adds another dimension to the uncertainty. So getting that certain and more controlled so that we can, early on, know that you've got good patents or not patents, and not 5 years into an expensive litigation to find that out or get certainty around that.
Absolutely. And of course, we've had the move to rein in cases before the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, but the costs in the court system are still doing their own thing. And so there's this whole uncertainty on what is the role of the PTAB and how are we going to manage that? So is it more cost? Is it less cost? Is it double cost? I don't know the answer to that. What do you think?
Those are good answers, so I won't be boring and say I agree. I'm going to go timelines here. If I can make one change that would just benefit everyone, maybe through the use of AI, I don't know, but let's accelerate this forward. Let's know a lot sooner in the process what we have. When we file, I want to get that examination fast. I want to get the issued patent fast. I want to know that that patent's good for 20 years soon. I don't want to wait 5 years for a patent or wait 2.5 years for examination, another 2.5 for an issued patent, and then have to wonder every day whether it's going to be challenged and whether we even should have got it in the first place.
Well, that's absolutely the golden thing, right? Is that you want a stable and reliable system where when your patent issues, you can go, I've got something, I've got my deed to my piece of property, and I can rely on that and exclude trespassers and continue to build, condominiums on top. I approve of that. Any questions from the audience? We've stunned you all into silence.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I get asked this many times, like by fellow inventor. This comes with PTAB, by the way, right? So an inventor has an idea, he could be sued multiple times, right? Shouldn't there be some kind of a regulation, almost like a double jeopardy rule, right? So
Right.
once you've been sued, kind of like, that's it, right? You don't have to worry about similar litigation coming your way.
Dave?
Well, it's kind of interesting because probably what's happening is the first person sues you, then the second person with a different patent that you're also potentially infringing sues you. So I guess the theory would be once you're in the suit, everybody has to raise their hand or forever lose their right. That's kind of interesting. I've never thought about that idea, but I could see why.
Well, I think there are moves in the patent office to curb some of that behavior by multiple entities trying to attack a patent.
Oh, that's where I thought Misha was going with for a patent holder or an inventor, where it might survive scrutiny once and you should be good, right? But turns out you're not.
In the court system, so in the PTAB, that may be getting calmed down a little bit, but in the court system, you still can attack multiple times.
I'm not sure I should be commenting on this, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Okay. So in that direction, I had that backwards. Yeah. I mean, in that direction, it obviously seems unfair to have to continually defend a patent. But on the other hand, you can understand the equity on the other side. I didn't get a chance to say why I think it's invalid. That guy had bad arguments. And that's why, and so I should get my chance too. So, it's a tough one to balance that.
But on the other hand, to have the same patent attacked over and over and over again, eventually you're going to break down the barriers. There's only so long the wall can stand. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
About like early steps. So let's say like I had a proof of concept for a really good idea, and it's not great, it's not marketable yet by any means, but I want to start protecting myself now. What steps should I take?
Talk to a patent attorney.
I am.
As soon as possible. I work with this all the time. I start with our inventors at the ideation phase. We just put inventors in a room and they pie in the sky ideas, and some of them we file on. And I tell them, like, this was the perfect time to engage. And when someone doesn't come to me until they have a proof of concept, I'll gladly take the idea, but I'll reiterate to them and to the group that, hey, it wouldn't have been bad if you had come sooner. You didn't need to do all this work. You could have just brought, a description of the idea. You didn't have to put, all this work into coding or building something. Patents, what I say internally is they're aspirational and conceptual. Let's talk day one. Like the second you fall in the shower or whatever, come to me that day. I want to hear that call. I want to get that call at 9 a.m. And then if you build it, we can iterate. And we have so many of those families where we have a provisional on day one, and then 360
But
days
this goes back
later
to the cost issue.
Well,
I was already afraid of.
so I'm an attorney at heart here. Open the checkbook.
So here's what's going to change pretty quickly. We're exploring this is really early on. AI is obviously going to be a theme, is these tools to help figure out what it looks like. Or like right now, you're going to put your idea into a paragraph. Well, very easily you could get queried by these tools. I mean, even Copilot, put it into Copilot and say, it'll tell me more about this, tell me more. You can actually end up with a fairly robust description of what you have in your mind, which is far better when you hand it to Dave at that point to then now go protect that. And that's something that you want to do early on and it's kind of as an assistant. And, you know, so I mean, you always could do whatever the book was, patent it yourself. It explains how you can mail it into the patent office or whatever, but it's always only as good as what you send in, right? But I think that first step that you can do on your own, you know, may not be legally as valuable as something Dave's do, but the part that you know, the part that's not legal, that's describing and exploring it, I think there's these, you know, as you saw at the beginning, this convergence of the optimization, the AI and the innovation, putting that all together. And first step is documenting that. I think you can, with the tools, the inventor can do a lot of that on their own right now. And
I'll add one thing, which is there's companies looking to help you. So Patent Clerk is a new company that just started recently. The whole idea is to give you an AI drafted provisional patent application. Better than you're going to do it, not as good as, patent attorney's probably going to do it, but a lot cheaper. So kind of bridging that gap, because that is obviously a hard gap.
And I would just caution, we've talked about AI. I, as a lawyer, I'm still not convinced that it will be not a public disclosure. So that hasn't been litigated yet. You are disclosing your idea to somebody that is not in your closed circle. So I would just caution to beware of that.
Yeah, I
Yes,
would say,
sir.
if I could just add to that point real quick, that is a really good point, that if you're at home having not engaged an attorney, that's probably the case if you just put it into Copilot or ChatGPT. Not saying you shouldn't do that, but you should be aware that that is a risk you're taking. If you engage a law firm, and here I am carrying water for David, but if you engage a law firm, they're probably, you should ask this question, but they're probably using like a closed system where your idea is not being used to train the greater, large language model, and it probably will not be. So it's a smaller risk.
So I think we're getting the hook here. So I'll thank my panelists very much. Thank you.
Hello, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is a very short segment. We've got about a half hour. And what we're going to do is shift gears a little bit, talk about the ecosystem of which all of you are a part and how important you are and how important it is that you interact with other ecosystems here if we want to make this place as special as we think it is. So we've got two folks here that you'll hear some very interesting information from. I'm not, I can't reduce it to one word for each of them, but Chase Saunders is a accomplished attorney, retired judge, entrepreneur, world traveler, and a Charlotte native. And he's going to give you some perspectives about why this is such a special place. Then Tracy Dotson has been involved with the assimilation of executives, regular people, large companies, small companies for 2 decades. And she has real perspective about what companies need to hear from ecosystems like yours and the ones in which you're going to interact. So just a number of us went to a function last night. There were 700 people there. Chase Saunders sent me a note this morning saying this: as you could not help but notice during the event last night, this is the World Affairs Council event, Charlotte is one of the only cities where enthusiastic, brilliant, articulate, and high-minded people can express their visions to a receptive audience willing to embrace and engage the issues of the day. Charlotte is a state of mind. Charlotte is a state of mind where possibilities can be examined and turned into realities through lots of hard work, and nobody says you can't give it a try here. So that pretty much sums up what our message is likely going to be. And I'm going to turn it over to Chase to present 3 slides, which will demonstrate to many of you his technical capabilities. Go ahead.
Your guinea pigs on this, folks. The first slide is...
You might stand up, Chase.
The first slide's the DNA of this region. It's logistics, and logistics is nothing but flows of goods, services, people, stuff, data, and money. So in Charlotte, energize it, create it, make it, sell it, finance it, move it, and cure it. Make this the ideal place for the IP community. Chris Anderson, in a fantastic book called Makers, basically said it the best. Real nations make things, and it's the creators who make the things, software and hardware, upon which nations survive. And we're all in a matrix of the past, the history, and the technology of the present. And as they interact, they make for the future and create the uncertainty in which we find ourselves today. I want to introduce two other slides. The next one is an AI effort where a bust of Queen Charlotte, a maquette, which was used for a bronze that is cited at Fifth in college, exists today. And the maquette is in the home of Ambassador Mark Irwin. He let me take a picture of it. And I wanted Queen Charlotte to introduce the next slide, which will be her appointments avatar. So let's see what.
And he did this on his own motion with his own technology.
So this AI stuff is, pardon any rudeness out of this, but let's put that thing back. Turn on the video, the audio.
Roll it back there. Maddie?
Can you get the audio? You got to get.
Yeah. Roll it back. We'll roll it back.
Okay, we're going to get this thing to work.
Let me, while we're waiting, Craig Sharton, is Craig here still? There he is. Could you stand up, please, sir? Because your name is going to come up in this discussion a good bit. And I'll butcher this, but basically, in my mind, he's the chief of innovation at the Pearl District. And the Pearl District, if you are not aware of it, you need to be. The new medical school is underway here. The Pearl District is wrapping around it and bringing in some innovation like no one's ever seen. So I've just given you a heads up. I'm a former college professor, and so I like to call on people, and I like to give people heads up that their name is coming up. You're going to get called on.
So let's see if we can.
I am Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Queen of England and the Empire. Welcome to my pavilion in Charlotte, North Carolina, named after my royal personage. Let me tell you about this gem in my crown.
Now let's hit the next one.
Queen Charlotte's appointments avatar, and would like to share with you a summary of key events in the history of Charlotte from her reign to the present. 1750s. First settlement by corporate-minded Scots Presbyterians and English at the intersection of ancient trading paths. 17th century. Land title fights with English crown landlords, Mecklenburg County created, Charlottetown founded, courthouse built at the intersection. 1770s. Crown breaches military support contract. Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. American Revolution Battle of Charlotte. 1780s to 1840s. River plantations. Gold discovered. Ore stamping mills in Uptown. A U.S. mint opened. North-South Railroad started. 1850s. East to West Railroad intersects Uptown. Cotton plantations. Mining and textile manufacturing. 1860s. Civil War naval armaments industry, engineers supply depot, 18th century, regional retail center, river-powered cotton mills, 1880s retail and textile expansion, 1890s, electrification of cotton mills, rail mechanizes with electricity, factories, trolleys, 19th century, manufacturing expansion, pipe and foundry, textile-related manufacturing, 1910s, World War I military base with related suppliers, 60,000 soldiers and businesses, Duke given power to build dams on Catawba River. 1920s, Federal Reserve Branch, WBT radio broadcasts, telephones, retail, cotton factors. 1930s, Depression, auto manufacturing, first airport built. 1940s, World War II, airport expansion, munitions, uniforms, war supply. 1950s, U.S. leading textile town, trucking center, television broadcasting, regional growth. 1960s, interstates, suburbs, bank technology, warehouses, trucking, large nuclear power dams, malls, manager model for fiscal governance. 1970s, genesis of Banktown, liquor by the drink, airlines merger. 1980s to 1990s, creation of interstate banking leveraging law and technology, NASCAR, NFL, NBA, U.S. Airways hub and spoke urban development. 2000s, number 2, U.S. Banking Center, Airport Rail Intermodal Center, expansion of community college, light rail lines, fintech, electrical energy tech, internet centers, bankers, lawyers, accountants. 2010s, logistics, leveraged, airport expansion, rail, finance, transactions, in-migration, data centers, football. 2020s, arrival of 157 people per day, logistics leveraged, 600 plus flights per day, 150 plus languages spoken, Medical school opens, emergence of MedTown as the 5th largest medical center in the United States. Charlotte is now a growing city-state. Queen Charlotte is pleased.
So 5 minutes with AI took a 45 or an hour-long speech I used to give. It just saved all the listeners the trouble.
So anyway, that's kind of the glimpse of how important this place is. And many of us are transplants. I know I am. I've been here 40 years, but I'm a transplant, as many of you are. And the history of this place is phenomenal. You need to take a deeper dive into it to get a sense for what it is that we are selling here as a community, which we're now going to hear from Tracy Dotson on. We're going to take some questions and make other observations. We're going to fill the full half hour. So Tracy, what are companies, what's the perception of companies and individuals, innovators, entrepreneurs of Charlotte these days?
Well, first, Chase, if you can get that to do the 2030s and the 2040s, I'm out of a job. Right?
Those slides, you're responsible.
Okay, I'll take those. I think what's been interesting, and I've really been in this business for 3 decades and watched Charlotte's growth for quite a while. What's interesting is we have become the community that people want to be in, and it's really exciting. If I go back 10 years, we were trying to sell people on what Charlotte was. We were trying to convince companies that your employees can live here, and what we have now is the people already moving here. You heard AI, 157 people a day to the region. That is attracting the companies. The companies know the talent is here. What is shifting, I think that's really interesting is, and this has been really in the past 2 years, is that they were coming for workforce and for the talent, but now they're also talking about the innovation. I have more and more companies that are looking at the Charlotte market, and they can be in financial services, they can be in other spaces, wanting to know, where are we on AI, where are we on innovation, and really having the companies to point to that can say, yes, we are thinking about this in this community. So it's exciting that it's really getting lifted up. I think the other thing that's really exciting here, and Mike, you warned Craig, is the physical locations to bring innovation together. It's kind of hidden, and it's been hidden in Charlotte, I think, but we've had a lot of it. And now having places like the Pearl, having conversations about the North Tryon Tech Hub, where we'll have physical places where the innovation can come together and people can really see it, I think is exciting.
And what's interesting, Tracy was telling me just before our session here that she's going to tell us where her next ancillary office is going to be. Now, she is the head of economic development and corporate relocations for the region, not just Charlotte, but the region. And where are you going to have a kind of a ancillary office?
So I'm committed, and Craig and I were just talking about it, I'm committed to having a desk over at the Pearl. And being there. And I've seen it even as all of the pieces of the Pearl are coming together within the first 2 buildings. I walked in to meet Craig for a tour of Connect Labs, which is one of the floors, and you meet a neurotech entrepreneur. He's talking about why he's in Charlotte was quality of life. He said, I have no business being in Charlotte. I should be in Boston. He's like, but I'm not. I will commute to Boston if I need to, but I'm going to be here. And to be able to run into him and have those experiences is really something remarkable. The other thing I'll say is I was on the front lines back 6 years ago when the Atrium team, Gene Woods, came to the city, came to the county and said, hey, we have this idea for medical school, which everybody had told us we needed in this community. But he said, no, I want it to be bigger and I want an innovation campus. And, in the back of my mind, I kind of said, yeah, but this is going to take decades, right? I'm going to pay attention to this, but it's not going to work as fast. And the rate of speed to which those pieces have come together in 6 years, it was 6 years ago, almost to the day that we had the first conversation about the Pearl, and now look at it. And so how that kind of momentum has started, I think really speaks a lot to what we have and the ingredients that we have, not just at the Pearl, but in this community around innovation.
Yeah, and so all of us that have lived here for a while, we get kind of complacent, I mean, it's Charlotte, so what's special about us? There's a dynamism here. Made me come 40 years ago. I could sense it. And we came here, and it's been true. But we get complacent. And, Craig told me just a little bit earlier that sometimes we don't recognize how special this place is. He's lived in places like San Francisco. He knows it when he sees it. And Craig, can you maybe give us a quick impression about Charlotte from your perspective, and also tell us what's going on at the Pearl that what's that? Well, he can do it standing up from back there and probably articulate. But and also tell us you know, something interesting going on at the Pearl that probably people don't know about.
Okay, so I did live in the San Francisco area during the 1990s, and I was relating earlier that the energy I felt there then is what I feel in Charlotte now. That there's a switch that has been flipped where people start believing in themselves and each other and the community. It's a people issue. It's not a technical issue. Once they start believing that, then they start following through and doing things, and then you get to see the results.
Yeah.
So that has really happened within health innovation. When I go back and read the original notes from the original meetings about that, people were saying there's no health innovation happening here. And what we're finding is there was a lot of health innovation happening here, but it wasn't connected. And so we're discovering companies here that nobody knew about that have been doing work on their own for a long time. And so the exciting thing for me and for the other people that are engaging this is they're all connected. And with Tracy's story, I found 6 companies during neurotech work that had never met each other that were all here. So putting those 6 people together, that's when you get the explosion that results from collaborating.
And can I add just one more thing on the Pearl that I think is fascinating is with EarCAD, which is surgical training, opened their doors last week. 12,000 surgeons and health tech professionals a year is what they had said, what Scott had said when we toured, all come into Charlotte, right? And then you have the companies that want to follow them. You have the innovators that want to follow the companies. It's just this perfect kind of mixture and momentum that I think, you know, I tell people where I think we're going to be in health tech in 10 years is comparable to where we'll be in the financial services in the early 2000s.
Yep.
That it can happen so fast. The last thing I'll say though too is I had somewhat, and I know we were talking about financial services earlier, I'd somewhat turned my back on financial services a little bit in recent years because we just have the strength, and I think I was kind of taking it for granted. I have over 4,000 financial service jobs in pipeline right now that are looking at Charlotte. And every single one of them wants to talk to Lowe's Tech Hub. They want to talk to Truist. They want to talk, and it's really about innovation. It's not just because we're known for financial services. It's about the innovation. And I can't quite put my finger on it yet. They're hearing something. It's something that's interesting them, but it's a shift where that's the conversation they want to have now.
So we'll come back to Tracy in a minute. I'm going to go to Misha, but be thinking about what it is that we're missing. What connections do you think we're missing as a community amongst ourselves? That would be an interesting issue. Misha, tell us a little bit about your story about why you are in Charlotte and why you have not been sucked out to Connecticut and points north by the many people that you've made famous in your career. Can you stand up and just give us a minute on it?
Sure. So I would probably say, and again, if you know kind of like my background, right? So my parents were Indian diplomats. I was born in the Soviet Union and Moscow. And basically my formative years, I lived literally all parts of the world, right? So, lived in Europe, like those days, East and West Germany were divided, Poland, and then England, and then in Asia, lived in Jakarta, Bangkok, Bangladesh, and New Delhi. And then in the Caribbean, lived in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. So part of it also is like I've got that travel bug in me, right? So the number one thing, if you were to ask me what I really like about Charlotte, is the airport. Go anywhere. So I think like that's one thing I really like. So I also used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I lived nearly 19 years of my life there. But I'd probably say I hated the long commute. The commutes were like, I used to live in Fremont. I used to take the BART, go to the San Francisco Financial District. And then it was thanks to Bank of America again, because I got hired kind of like, right around 911. And then after a promotion, I got kind of like, relocated to Charlotte. So I've been here like ever since 2004. Short commutes, I love that. And again, it's a very safe place to raise kids. So I've raised kind of like 4 kids here. So we're formally now empty nesters, so I can resume kind of like my travel again. I'm thinking about getting like a T-shirt for me and my wife. Basically, that says, you know what, spending our kids' inheritance. That's kind of like,
Sure. And Misha is a resident of 4th Ward, downtown, living just like Bill McNamara in the back, who works for Bank of America and is a stalwart in our community. Okay, we're going to get Tracy's impressions about what we're missing, connections and resources, and then we'll open it up for anybody's observations, questions, or whatever. Tracy?
I will say, Misha, thanks for the shout out for the airport, because we recognize that all Charlotte residents live in construction at the airport. So some I talk to sometimes hate the airport, but it really is our engine in our growth. I think one of the things that's missing in this space particularly is that connective tissue, right? I talk to a lot of companies sometimes, and it's the venture capital, the money is also another piece of it. And trying to wrap my head around what do we do, or do we just harness the momentum? And Craig, we've talked about that a little bit to try to solve that. But the other thing that I pay attention to, and Misha just kind of hit on it, was the quality of life, right? If we're getting a lot of these entrepreneurs, and we talked about one of the neurotech entrepreneurs, we're getting this because of quality of life. Coming out of San Francisco, coming out of Boston, coming out of other markets. If we don't keep that quality of life, then I think it gets a lot harder to solve for these other things. If we can harness the momentum and really keep moving with that momentum and keep an eye on these other things, then we move. So things like mobility, we have a transportation referendum that's coming up right now. If we don't get this right, with 157 people a day, we're going to choke ourselves out. So we've got to stay ahead of that growth and stay on it. And I think that Charlotte's secret sauce is about the partnerships. It's about how the private sector can come together with the public sector to solve these things and stay ahead of our growth.
Yeah, I'll never forget when I first got here, Hugh McCall and Harvey Gantt was the mayor at the time. McCall was looking out of the window of his skyscraper office, and he picked up the phone and he called Harvey and said, "Harvey, I don't like looking out my window and seeing a bunch of people standing out there in the rain waiting for a bus. And we need to do something about it." Harvey said, "Well, I'll get you the land. You figure out the financing and we'll do it." And it went from an idea to done in literally about 6 months. And that's it's the bus station downtown, and which is all going to be reformulated, reconsidered, et cetera. But I mean, that's the kind of dynamism that's always been here, as Chase has pointed out. But Chase, any quick observations? Give me a hand if you've got a question or an observation out there, and we'll go to you.
One of the areas that you have to think about is how we're going to squeeze, and the IP opportunities for squeezing out every foot-pound from every electron that's being generated. We have the largest collection of talent in actually making electrical stuff work on the planet here that's multi-generational, going back to the days of the punch card. And all those guys are here and can be brought in for various tasks. So we have the talent, and Musk and anyone else will tell you that we've got to have a 2 or 3x the generation. So boring utilities are going to be the high-tech area, and the area that has the most energy is the winner, both globally as well as locally. So we've got that area that's ripe to blow up, and we'll be the beneficiary of that.
And if you think about leaders, there's lots of them. Jim Rogers at Duke, he recognized the fact that within 150 miles of here is exactly what Chase described. I mean, it's everything from nuclear to any other generation system, and engineers, experts, and Jim put together a consortium called E4 Carolinas, which effectively was used to market us as saying, "Hey, if you're any place in the energy space, you need to be down here." So anyway, there's lots of stories, and as Misha knows, stories are currency. I mean, that's the communication currency, are stories. It's not babbling on about data and all the rest of it. It's stories that send a message that we are special here, and yeah, we're proud of it. Any quick observations, questions? Yes, sir.
Picking up on something Tracy was talking about, connective tissue, in the RTP area, 30 years ago, maybe 35 or 40 years ago, the Council for Entrepreneurial Development, the CED, came along and became the connective tissue that brought Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill together around Terry Sanford's RTP, Research Triangle Park. And it connected lots of business interests that were, many of them, quite disparate and unrelated to one another, and didn't have a whole lot of connection. But it brought all these business interests together because everybody wants to have viable business and a viable economy in in the region in which they live. And it breathed life into the Research Triangle Park in a way that nothing here ever has done. And so I wonder if those of you on the panel have any thoughts or ideas about, I kind of feel like a CED-like organization in this community could bring that together and be that connective tissue, sort of the hub of all the various disparate elements. And it would need to be a matchmaker in a lot of ways to bring folks together. It would need to tie up capital, bring people access to capital. And it would also need to produce something like a Kauffman Foundation fast track program to help educate entrepreneurs on what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, and so that is the secret sauce, and believe me, it's not lost on any of us. You know, that's the one thing that we've had some difficulty over the years, and get Tracy to weigh in on this, but John Gallus also probably has a theory or two about this as well as to why we haven't done it. Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, I think we're ripe for it now. I mean, if I see some of what is starting to come together with the Pearl, if I look at the North Tryon Tech Hub and the companies and some of the leaders that are starting to come together in that space, it's starting. I think we need probably a more intentional effort around it and more formalized effort around it. Also, in the academic space, I'm really enthusiastic about what I see right now with all the universities really starting to work together and bring their assets together and be partners. And so with all of those things kind of working around, it does feel like now's the time, and it probably feels like that's something that we need to do.
Jason, quick.
The concept, as it relates to the Pearl, of a Charlotte Regional Medical Foundation, where all the players, research, academic, practicing groups, and all of the companies that are moving in here, an organization where all members are part of it. And with the foundation, you can have that connective tissue for that resurgence and for the creation of a new medicine, 21st century medicine for Charlotte.
And we're really starting to see, again, everybody come together and, you know, working together, sharing ideas together. Last week, I had the opportunity at UNC Charlotte to kick off at the biomedical symposium, but it was all these schools that were come together to share ideas and share concepts. And it was so great to see. And at the event last night, other people were talking about different instances where, you know, the schools have come together and shared ideas in research and development. And so, again, that momentum with the bricks and mortar and some of these other pieces that we're talking about, I think says it is time to kind of formalize on some of this.
And so, you know, this is the other part of this is we can't be in the mode that everybody typically is, which is, okay, what can we do with what exists now? We got to be thinking big game, big bore stuff. And the big bore stuff connects lots of places that none of us have really been thinking about. The nutrition center up in Kannapolis, a potential rail system from Atlanta through Charlotte to Richmond or wherever. You know, these are the big cogs that we have got to start paying attention to. John, any quick observations about that?
Well, I guess I encourage thinking another 25 to 50 years ahead of where we are right now. There's a tremendous upheaval of economics around the globe right now. And we've got leadership in this country that wants to see that attracted to the United States. And of course, we all love that part of it. But we also ought to see the dynamics of this healthcare system. We benefit from the quality healthcare here in the United States, but we ought to find a way to distribute that and just help other nations discover the opportunity for health among their populations, and do that in a much more alliance-oriented organization. I think we've seen a nucleus of business out in California, obviously around the tech companies and the AI companies, but there's a whole opportunity here with our healthcare and with what we've learned about delivering healthcare to the elderly, to the youth, and part of the reasons immigration is happening around the globe is because people are unhappy where they are, and if we can help them become happier with where they live and enjoy some of the fruits that we have in the United States, then we become leaders that share that in a way. That makes this global in a way that never imagined.
Yeah, so our charge to all of you is to be thinking about the bigger picture, how you fit into it, what you can do to, as we say, collect dots and connect them. I've collected a lot of dots today. I'm going to try to connect them every place I can. Everybody here should be doing the same thing. And don't just be talking amongst yourselves. Be talking to people that you don't know. Stop on the street. I've found that people actually are waiting for someone to stop them in the street and just talk about some stuff. And I'm kind of talking figuratively there, but if you're in a cocktail party, we all tend to accumulate around people we know, people that do similar things to what we do. Break out of the mold. That's what Charlotte's all about. Talk to other people and let them know what you're thinking. So Misha, we're going to bring this baby in on time as advertised. It's all yours.
I appreciate it. So yesterday, I was fortunate enough with Chase and Mike to attend, like the World.
Could you step up?
Yeah. And what was amazing to me is the present environment that we live in. It's like, let's get everything into the United States, manufacturing-wise. But then I want you to think also, like when we are on an airplane, the airplane safety, we have learned so much from the black box. The black box came from Australia, okay? If you are Canva, we all use a design software that also came from down under, Australia as well. If you have an air fryer in your kitchen, it came from Netherlands. If you ever use a selfie stick, it came from Canada, right? So the point is that we also need to think about like the world citizen, by the way, right? So I think that's very, very important. So, don't kind of like be naive, like everything's going to come from the United States, right? And one of the other things that we have done with ideas, by the way, is we have about 6 chapters already. But guess what? All of that chapter is, interestingly, I like to call it, is getting fed from Charlotte. Whatever we learned from Charlotte, because innovation is unique. The way we innovate here is very different than how we were innovating in Mumbai or Hyderabad, or even, let's say, Shenzhen, like China. What I found, here we tend to kind of do things, by throwing a lot more money. There, they tend to be kind of like, very, they use the optimal use of money, by the way, right? So a lot of the things, they do it a lot cheaper, by the way. So it's kind of very interesting. And you don't want to destroy that, okay? Because their competitive advantage could also be, it's eventually going to come to us as well, right? So that, by the way, is also going to keep inflation low. So, I'd like to say, like, think like a world-class citizen as well. And I think like that's kind of like, our success, for us, as Charlotteans, but for the world as well. And again, thank you so much for attending. This is awesome.
And I guess there's a reception out there, and you're welcome to anything that Dave provides out there. Thank you, Misha.
Thank you so much.
Really good. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Thank you.
James,
That's
thank
great,
you, my
great
friend.
mantra of the panel. That was awesome. You've done it before.
Well, I just, I like.
To be a Charlotte capitalist, he basically.